Hey everyone, we're back, and today we're going over the issue of really interesting ways that people have inserted an idea into the background of whatever media it is that you're taking in, and the cool things that that they allude to, but without straight up telling you, and then some other Easter eggs and things like that.
There's so many different things like this, so many different movies that try and connect to other properties, whether they are or not, they kind of try to. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm Ollamh.
I'm Outlander.
Welcome to the Nerdening.
So don't tell me how to act or how it should be. All we wanted is to be free. We don't want to be like you. You see, we just act a little crazy, and we're following the heartbeats. We don't want to be like you.
Okay, so I guess one of the easiest places to start would be something like Predator 2. The most obvious one that was never outright said or never outright, oh, hey, this is a thing, was actually the alien skull in the trophy room.
I loved that as a kid because I grew up loving the Alien series, and we only had the two movies at that point in time anyway.
Yeah.
But I was just like, man, and I really loved Predator 2 as well because it seemed like a natural progression for the series, but it was widely panned by critics as just bad.
Well, I think they kind of felt that it was rehashing things, and it really kind of was.
But it expanded too.
But it was, well, like you said, it was a natural progression because they're used to hunting in jungles and stuff, but now there's this city was on the verge of going to hell, basically, and they said, hey, well, let's go here. But the alien skull in particular was interesting because a lot of people were like, oh, okay, so that's... I think a lot of people saw it as just an Easter egg and not a telling marker for the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the special effects for Predator 2 and Predator 1 were done by the Stan Winston studio, who also did Aliens and the original... no, I think it was somebody else who did the original Alien movie. But, so the studio itself kind of did that, but it was also sort of a play on some of the fan fiction that was getting written in comics and stuff like that around that time, where they were alluding to that.
Yeah.
And so the studio was like, oh, wouldn't this be cool, Well,
and it was kind of one of those, I think it was kind of one of those, it was supposed to be, yes, they actually do exist in that same universe.
Yeah, and that's what connected them.
Yeah,
that moment.
That was that first hint that was that first clue that yes, they are. And then of course much later we got Predators versus Aliens, or Aliens versus Predators, or however AVP. They put it. And the moment they released that, I knew what their end goal with that movie was. And that was to have an Alien Predator hybrid.
Yes, which was really a big thing in the comics, the Dark Horse comics in the 90s. I really wish that the first AVP movie, they had just made the 6 comic series that Dark Horse put out, because that would have been a blockbuster beyond all belief, and lots of fun, and way frickin' better than what we got.
Well, you can say that about any comic book movie, particularly of that time.
Well, if they just followed that story instead of trying to...
Yeah, but they never follow a straight story.
Oh, not entirely, no. But I mean, I don't know. It's a whole other thing.
Yeah, they I think that's going to be one of our later episodes.
Yeah, I'm so mad about that because I remember reading the comic and then I saw the movie and I was like, what is this crap? They beefed up all the Predators. They gave them super long. Another episode for that one.
But one of the interesting things that I find with the Predator is the unspoken reason for their heat, unspoken reason why they focus on heat vision. And it all has to do with with their cloaking technology. if you've seen it, you know that, well, when they cloak, they have this shimmer. There's just this kind of wavy shimmer. And what that is basically that's a field that is bending the light around them. As the field and frequencies fluctuate, you get that little bit of a shimmer. But if there's a lot of motion, like leaves and stuff moving in the background, that's not really going to be seen. So if you bend light around yourself, and this is a problem with a lot of cloaking technologies, is if you're bending light around yourself, there's no light to hit your retinas. There's no light to hit your rods and cones in your eyes. So you're not going to see anything. They can't see you, but you can't see anything because you have no light to see with. So how do you get around that? Well, you find a way to see in a different spectrum, and that's where the heat vision comes in. Mm-hmm. The heat radiating off is still going to, you're still going to see the heat. That radiation is going to interact with your sensors. And it's actually something that they kind of touched on with Star Wars a little bit in the novels, in the novelizations, is they have cloaking technology, but if a sensor can't penetrate that cloaking field, a sensor can't penetrate out.
Yeah.
Which was always a big thing with Star Trek, which, with the Klingons and everything, it's like, well, they can still sense everything. All their equipment works.
But they can't fire while cloaked.
True. But if a sensor can't detect your ship, how is your sensor penetrating that same field? If there's small little micro holes that your computer knows just where it is, then there's a possibility that But
even then, your sensor range is still going to be less because you're going through a pinhole to try to get all of your other whatnot.
Exactly.
That was kind of graphic. I'm sorry.
Damn it! Now we're demonetized. Great job.
Hey, you're the perverts.
But it was an interesting solution. It was an honest to goodness, reasonable solution to a problem that most people just ignore. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of what got me to thinking about this topic. Was that's a brilliant solution that is right out there in the open that most people aren't going to see. They're not going to think about.
Yeah. Other things I love about the little nuances that people try to put in, and people keep bringing up other commenters keep bringing up things like the top that Leonardo DiCaprio had in Inception and that, and little things that keep your mind thinking and trying to unravel the film afterwards. That's not quite an Easter egg, but it is a great use of the elements that they introduced in the film.
True, and we're kind of touching back a little bit as far as our first season and the idea of fan theories, mm-hmm. but that wasn't his totem.
Yeah, his totem was actually, allegedly his totem was his wedding ring.
And the way that movie ends, it leaves it open to possibility, because you don't know if he's in a dream or not. It's never stated. It's just kind of, it's like, well, is it going to stop or is it going to keep going?
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah,
there?
we don't know. But there's a lot of them that work. There's some that don't too. I think for me, one of the ones that doesn't work is Iron Man 2, when he has Captain America's partially constructed shield, and he uses that to prop up his makeshift collider, and it had potential to work. It had potential to work because they were saying, "Hey, Captain America's coming up. Get excited. Here's a little thing for it."
You see it.
But then they did Captain America, and they he started off with the kite shield like he does in the comics. Mm-hmm. And then he gets the vibranium round shield. And that was something that Tony Stark already had together, and oh God. What? Yeah, his dad.
Dad Stark.
Daddy Stark.
We're blanking.
And, that was something that he already had, and he was pushing for, like, more aggressive shields with spikes and stuff like that. So why was there a partially constructed shield? As far as everybody knew, Captain America was dead, so...
Well, the only reasonable explanation to me for that is that, I mean, when I'm working on stuff in my shop, if it's kind of important, I make more than one. And if but vibranium is very hard to come by and everything. But then when we get all the way to, Age of Ultron, which was like 3 days long or a week long, it's not hardly an age, but, when we get to the Age of Ultron, he finds enough vibranium to, like, build a giant tungsten or vibranium spike to destroy mankind.
Yeah.
But
it's just one of those things where it's like, as an Easter egg, it doesn't really work, because it's like, hey, here's this. There's really no reason for it to be here. And I guess that's kind of my example of a bad Easter egg, is one that just says, hey, this is here because next movie, and it really doesn't. There's no logic to it.
I just figured it out. The reason it was there was exactly what we're doing now. To make people talk about it and go, did he... Wait.
But that's my point.
Why?
That's my point. It's a useless Easter egg. It has no purpose in the movie. It has no logical...
In the movie, yes.
It has no logical place in Tony's workshop.
So the cool thing about that shield, all right, is that it makes people think, and it makes them wonder. It creates an arena for further engagement. And people are like, oh, well, did Iron Man himself ever actually have that in the comics and stuff like that? So people go back and they read the comics and they do these other things. But there's another cool engagement thing that we've been seeing more and more of, particularly with Jurassic World and Prometheus, and I think a couple other movies I can't remember off the top of my head, but with Prometheus, they actually put up a Weyland-Yutani website talking about new worlds and places they've been and things they've discovered.
Okay.
And you could apply for a job with Weyland-Yutani, and you could apply for a job on the Jurassic World website, too. And read the bio of the guy who took over for John Hammond in that. Spare no expense.
Okay, so yeah, so that's kind of an interesting...
Not quite an Easter egg.
Not quite an Easter egg, but kind of a more... They're trying to immerse you in this world more. Yeah, because there was, I think the Blair Witch Project, the original movie kind of did that, because it was like, oh, these hikers are missing, and
they actually posted flyers around the local towns and everything, and people legit thought that they were missing and that this was a legit found footage film until the three actors went on a talk show.
Yeah, and it's and that's kind of an interesting idea, because it really does make you feel like it's more than just a movie. Like Jurassic World was, well, here's the weather conditions at the park. Here's all these different things for the park.
These events coming up, new display, new exhibits and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of games do that too. They will build a website where it's really kind of immerse you in this before the game comes out. We're going to tell you about the world. We Happy Few was releasing videos for their Uncle Jack show that is featured in the background of the game, kind of. And it was kind of setting up this world of, they actually had the creator of the game come onto Uncle Jack's show, and they talked to him about this, and well, why wouldn't anybody take their joy pill and be happy? Why would they want to be a downer and stuff like that? Like he's actually in the world, but he's talking to the creator of the world. And that's
kind of meta.
Yeah. But it's kind of a fascinating idea. Well,
and the purpose of all these, like you said, it's world building.
Yeah.
You know, it's helping put the viewer or the consumer's mind frame, you know, in that world and in that frame, so that they're just that much more susceptible to all the little ticks and tinks and things they do while in game or in the film or, you know, in the product that they have. Period.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take a real quick break, and we're going to be back with a few more examples of probably moving on to television this time as to where they really kind of brought in some brilliance.
I appreciate it when they do the really cool things.
So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Okay, and we are back. So, TV talk now. TV Easter eggs where they they really moved beyond just the show and kind of little Easter eggs that really tied things together.
Yeah. Well, like, okay, so like on The Flash, and I'm just now remembering this, I think there actually is a website out there for Star Labs.
It would not surprise me.
Yeah, like I think there's a Star Labs website out there. And just another way that the viewer can connect with the show and get into all the other special features of the stuff that they've put together.
Now, an interesting thing with The Flash that some people don't realize is Barry Allen's dad actually played the Flash back in the 90s.
I didn't even know there was a 90s Flash.
He played Barry Allen in the 90s. The character of Tina McGee was actually the lead scientist for Star Labs. And the biggest one was Mark Hamill, when they brought him in as the Trickster.
Which, go yeah.
He played the Trickster in the 1990s era Flash.
The irony that I found when you told me about that, the irony I was thinking there was like, well, it's so super perfect because, I mean, the Trickster is already kind of a play on the Joker character, who Mark Hamill also voiced in Batman the Animated Series. So it was just, I love that Mark Hamill was there. I love everything else Mark Hamill has been doing. He's voiced characters on Metalocalypse and stuff like that.
But the big thing is that picture of him in he's rocking the leotard. That was a picture from the 90s era Flash. That was just a still from that show. And a lot of people don't realize that. It's like there was this tie-in, and if you've seen season 2, particularly the end of season 2, there's a really good payoff as far as that actor and his that past work. There's a really super awesome payoff for it.
Yeah.
There's also if you're I will warn you, if you haven't seen the end of season 2 but you do remember the 90s Flash, it may be a little traumatizing, just a little bit.
Okay. I'm just waiting on the extra seasons to hit Netflix because that's what I use. But thank God they finally put up the Gotham and that. Oh, but I can't wait for more Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I know they're just now rolling out their Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Ghost Rider season and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as far as like tie-ins and Easter eggs and that, one of the things I initially appreciated about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then later got tired of was the way Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. followed the MCU, the Marvel Universe movies that were coming out, because it felt like they were waiting on a movie to come out, so they had some filler episodes to fill in, you know. And
yeah, but at the same time, you know, they are an offshoot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You really can't take take Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and just separate it from the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
You can't.
You can't.
No.
It's established that they are on the same world. Therefore, when something major happens in one of the movies,
They are affected
it's going
by it.
to affect the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well, like the end of Winter Soldier in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. no longer exists. It's considered a terrorist organization and everything.
Yeah. And that's one of those things like I said, you can't separate the two, because all of a sudden, well, if something happens in the movie, you have to show its effects on the show.
And at the very least, acknowledge it. And I appreciate how they occasionally joke about, oh, well, why don't you just call Iron Man or something? Well, that's complicated. Where's Nick Fury? He actually shows up a couple times in the first season, but
after a certain point, he can't show up.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen all of the most recent ones, so the most recent movies, so I don't know.
Well, no, but you've seen Winter Soldier.
Yeah, he can't exist anymore.
Yeah, he has to pretend to be dead. So he can't just go around saying, "Hey guys."
What I'm waiting for is
here.
I'm waiting for Coulson to reappear in one of the Marvel movies. Like that's all that's missing to make this come full circle, and maybe we'll get that with the Infinity War or something. Like Coulson shows up somewhere and it's like, "Gotcha, guys. Here's this. I'll be back." And then we might not see him again the rest of the movie, but that's the cool thing they need to help defeat Thanos or something.
Yeah. Now, some of the other like hidden things that in some TV shows. One of them that was a huge fan of is Community. And they have some kind of jokey throwaway Easter eggs, like they say Beetlejuice 3 different times in 3 different episodes. The third time, a character walks along in the background dressed as Beetlejuice. But they also show that these characters aren't the only story going on at Greendale Community College. In one episode, the character of Abed winds up going off and, he's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna kind of hang back this episode. He's generally talks kind of meta, so he sees everything as a show, so he's like, I'm just gonna step back this episode. And if you look in the background, you see that he's interacting with this woman, and actually winds up giving birth in the parking lot in the background of the show. And they reference it later on. He's like, well, I've delivered a baby before. And they're like, wait, where? When? Huh?
Well, that one episode where you weren't around.
Yeah.
But he was.
And it's one of those things where it's like, it's really, they really work on showing that, yes, there really is a story that, it's not just this group of people. Everybody has their own story, and there's lots of different stories going on. And I love that with when they do that, especially in TV shows, because it's like they're kind of, it is an Easter egg, but it's like it doesn't have to be the stars all the time. It's like there is life outside of these individuals.
Life outside of that show, no less, yeah. Another really cool thing is like the crossovers that we see. The crossovers, like, so I started watching The Flash before I started watching The Arrow. I kind of wish I'd done it the other way around, but when I finally, started, I watched The Flash and loved it and thought it was a great show, and then started watching The Arrow because I heard some kind of negative things about it, but the seasons were already up, and I'm like, all right, I'll dig in. And I actually really enjoyed the show, but I loved the crossover parts where Barry Allen shows up in the Arrow universe. Their cities are kind of close, maybe a half hour apart or something. And so we see Barry Allen before he's ever the Flash in the Arrow.
Yeah.
And then the only reason I watched the Arrow was because we see the Arrow show up in the Flash TV show. And that created that further engagement between those two. Well, they're the same universe, but those two kind of worlds in that same universe.
Yeah, and it's not just about the crossovers for them. Before the Flash became a show, they were in the second season of the Arrow, they were talking about the Star Labs, the Star Labs generator that they're building,
the
and
collider they're going to put together.
Yeah, they're getting ready to, the turn on ceremony, and there's these protests. Sometimes in the Flash, you'll hear about, Oliver Queen. News from Starling City. Oliver Queen is yada yada yada.
You really only ever see it as kind of a news flash in the background.
Exactly. It's not a crossover, but they are kind of acknowledging, hey, this is something that would be on the news beyond just their city. This is major news. Therefore, it's going to show up in the other show.
They kind of do that a little bit in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with the events of the MCU, too. Or like, oh, well, this just happened.
Yeah. But
pull the alarm. Yeah.
But it's not just, this is affecting us directly. It's background stuff.
That's happening over there.
Yeah, this is newsworthy. So they're going to, if the news happens to be on the TV, that's going to pop up.
So we were talking about Firefly earlier.
Yes.
So like little things about the world building, the universe building that you do. Why don't they have more laser guns like on their ships? And more importantly, why don't the infantry and the personnel carry laser guns?
And there's two reasons. There's two reasons that I've seen. One is kind of explained as they're expensive, they're difficult to use, they're not something that's going to be handed out like candy.
Not super effective, but nice to have occasionally. Like part of a squad, but you don't want everybody to have one.
But at the same time, there is a really good reason behind it, and that is a laser can do a lot of damage to metal.
Yeah.
And
ships are made of metal.
Yeah, you don't want to miss your target, hit the hull, and puncture a hole in it.
Or worse yet, hit your target and still puncture a hole in the ship. Your triple hull or whatever you got.
Yeah, it's one of the... But with a metal bullet, it's not going... It is not likely to punch a hole through your hull. It might dent it a little bit, but it's generally not going to puncture a hole through it. So you're not going to have to worry about all of a sudden all of your air is escaping through what was a teeny tiny little hole and is now massive.
Yeah. Well, that's why, the Battle of Serenity in the first episode of Firefly, the gliders and stuff flying over, they're shooting, ammunition, but you also, I think we see lasers?
I think there are some.
Because there's tracer rounds and stuff going off through that.
Yeah.
But then when we get to the Serenity movie, the actual battle cruisers and everything, they fired lasers. They were trying to puncture hulls.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that's kind of a little bit weird as far as Star Wars and Star Trek, is everybody's firing lasers, and it's like, that's not exactly safe to do on a ship.
Yeah, well, and the cool thing about the Star Trek universe, anyway, is that you can just dial it down to stun or whatever, and maybe the maximum setting is not enough to go through the polarized hull plating or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's also probably why they still use torpedoes in space like that, because you got to get through the shield.
Well, torpedoes, an explosion is going to do, a photonic explosion is going to do more damage than laser.
Yeah.
It's just payload at that point. It's how much kinetic damage does that do versus a relatively small area of energy. So, I mean, that's kinetic energy.
We see torpedoes get through shields more easily than lasers. Lasers always kind of disperse and diffuse on a shield.
Well, torpedoes, like I said, it's all about kinetic energy.
Mm.
How much kinetic energy can your shield absorb before it's overloaded and fails?
I can't remember which episode of which series it was, but I remember or maybe it was even one of the actual Star Trek movies with the original Shatner crew. They just fly a shuttle or an entire ship very slowly through the shield into a shield, into the shield bubble, because they're just moving slow enough they can gently puncture it. So it's sort of like a non-Newtonian fluid in that way, where if you hit it hard, it's going to be solid. But if you just...
I know what you're talking about. They've done it a few different times in a few different Star Treks that I remember. But it's about the making sure the frequencies are the same. The frequencies of the shields have to be the same. Otherwise, your shield and their shield are going to hit and stop.
Sort of like connecting bubbles.
Yeah. It has to be the right frequency.
Okay.
You can't just slowly creep in.
We're really whacking our nerd right now.
You stay away from my nerd.
Hey, now, it was your idea for us to blend our nerds.
No.
That's why we're here.
No.
We're whacking our nerds for you.
Okay, that's about all the time we have for today. Thank God.
In an intellectual sense, we're whacking our nerds. Very intellectual. It's ethereal.
Yeah. So, what are some of your favorite unmentioned brilliances or Easter eggs or things that you thought were really awesome and really neat that just made the experience better?
There's so much out there about, just the little things that they insert, or that they give you the opportunity to think about it once you leave the theater, once you turn off the TV, once you leave the internet.
Are there some Easter eggs that you've seen that you just seem like just throwaway Easter eggs? Just they mentioned it because it's neat and that's it.
So stay tuned for more from Ollamh Productions
and the American Machine.
We'll see you next time.
Cheerio.
One who gave him a hint how handsome he is, how strong his muscles are. Oh, yeah. If I'd been her, clothes would not have been all we would have said if you had booby twins.
So we're going to try to tackle some of the ones that we've heard today.
One of the more recent ones that came up is the change of Mad Max's